Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of We Should Have Recorded That with Phil and
Adam.
Hey, Adam, how's it going?
I'm fine, Phil. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing all right as
I
well.
do feel the need to apologize to anyone who is watching this episode and not listening to this episode because I've had a fever for the past 3 days, and on those kind of days, I just wear hoodies. So anyway, but I'm feeling better now. So hopefully by next week's episode, I will look like a professional again.
Well, great. Well, I mean, we both are dressed down today. I have my T-shirt. I mean, I don't think people have expectations from me. So,
Well, I mean, and I want to encourage our audience to consume WSRTwPA in
yeah,
whatever medium they most enjoy. But for the
yes,
life of me, I cannot imagine enjoying looking at my face.
I'm sure someone out there who that is, that's why they come back. They come back every week. And
Yes,
Asia said that right a couple of weeks ago.
we
She's
can
like, you.
we can credit our huge audience to the video element.
Yes, I mean, and you, I'm gonna, we're kind of bantering here, but I want to say this. I think Asia called you the Mr. Rogers with the beard or something like that. Or no, it's like there's a meme with Mr. Rogers with the beard, and she compared you to him. Which who doesn't love Mr. Rogers? You know what I'm saying? Like,
I
who
know.
doesn't?
I feel a little self-conscious being compared to him because I obviously cannot measure up.
Well, I mean, you're doing a pretty good job. I want to
Well,
give you an A
you
grade.
are too generous, my friend. Tell me,
Right.
though, do we have other ways for our community to engage with us, Phil?
Yes, we do. So you can, as Adam was saying, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by WSRTwPA. You can also find us on YouTube by the title of our podcast. Please, please, please reach out. This is a conversation. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that we're very transparent about our expertise. So we're not saying that we're experts in everything that we attempt to talk about. Please, please, this is a conversation, so please be a part of it with us. We do have some comment. I forgot to mention one last week, but we'll start with the most recent one. Miss Matthews, who's been on,
Oh,
she
excellent.
she's been checking us out, and she really loved last week's podcast. She said it was great. She shared it on Facebook, and she really liked the musicianship of our last guest. And so,
Mm.
thank you, Miss Matthews, for sharing, liking, and promoting that episode. It seems to have really done well. People have been really interested in our conversation with Dr. Smith. And then secondly, Pastor TJ has been he seems like a pretty consistent fan. He actually mentioned us in his sermon 2 weeks ago. Yep,
We got a sermon mention?
we got a sermon mention. He was talking about being your authentic self, and of course in that
Mm.
relating to who we are in Christ, being made a new creature in Christ, and that's how we find our true self in Christ. And so I was like, amen, brother. So thank you, Pastor TJ.
Yes, thank you.
So Adam, would you like to let people know what's going on next? Because we haven't spoiled it. If you're not watching, you don't know what's
I
coming next.
know. How often are we that disciplined? All right. So she needs no introduction because back by popular demand is our first ever WSRTwPA guest.
Yes.
Welcome back, Janette LaBarre.
Woo!
Woo! Hi, Janette.
Hi. Great to be back.
It is great to have you back. How are you?
I am doing very well.
I'm so glad.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. Phil and I, we said to you right before we began recording that we need to do our catch up on the air. So, what's new in your life since the last time our audience has heard your voice?
Well, it's been very busy.
Mm-hmm.
I have been doing all of the video and audio recording for Roberts and producing their concerts, which have been premiering online on YouTube and
Mm-hmm.
other places. Um, and I've also been doing some work for other musicians local to Rochester and building websites and helping them to get a media presence, social media presence. So yeah, things have been good, steady, busy,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I'm very happy to be doing that work. I think it's very timely and important for the arts right now. So
Yes.
that's kind of what's new career wise. Yeah.
And so um, that kind of entrepreneurship that the pandemic has necessitated. Uh, let's start with let's start with any drawbacks, if there are any, and then tell us, though, the many and sundry benefits.
For myself personally, or the arts in general.
Oh, you take your pick.
Okay. I mean, I think the major drawback for the arts in general is the lack of live performances.
Mm-hmm.
That's just been such an impact on organizations across the gamut. Obviously, lack of revenue, the loss of institutional knowledge, um,
Mm.
the loss of culture within the organization itself, the lack of community that orchestras provide, not just orchestras. I say orchestras because that's where my
Right.
leanings
Yeah.
are, but whenever I
We
say
know.
orchestra, just assume I mean all arts.
All musical organizations.
Forgive me,
Oh,
all you singers.
Yes,
Um,
thank you. All musicians.
yes,
yes, the singers and the musicians.
yes, right. I believe this is a throwback from our last podcast. The same thing happened.
We also referenced it just last week
We
with
did.
because yes, in gospel music settings they refer to them as the singers and the musicians.
Yes.
Okay.
That's when they mean the singers and the instrumentalists.
So, I mean, those are just some of the drawbacks. Obviously, musicians themselves miss performing together. Probably very, very much. I know I do. And then I would say, some of the benefits are that, this pandemic has forced people to think outside the box, get creative, find ways to create revenue for themselves. They have had to just sort of move online almost immediately and
Yes.
stay online. And those are all, I don't think those are necessarily bad things. The question will be, when this is all over, will we be moving back into, will we be done with our online situation, or will we be going back exclusively live, or will there be some kind of expected crossover, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder, like, man, there were so many things you were mentioning there. um, the institutional knowledge. Maybe we talk about that, and then the community. Like, how has COVID kind of affected what you were calling the institutional knowledge in the community?
Well, I think what I meant there was more to do with the organizations themselves. So, we've seen a lot of organizations have to lay off their staff and their administration, and so people are moving around the country, taking different openings and things like that. And whenever that happens, the knowledge that person had of the institution
Right.
they had previously been working for is somewhere inside their brain, right? But they're no longer working for your institution. So there's a lot of upheaval in terms of structure going on within organizations, and that can be good or that can be bad. That can spur you into the future in a positive way because now you have to sort of reinvent yourself, but it can also be catastrophic,
Right.
if you're talking about donors, donor retention, community retention, ticket sales, and that kind of thing. So it's the same sort of conversation where I think it can be really a good thing, but it can also be a problem.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I'm just, for those of you who are not watching, I'm just smiling for two reasons. One, Janette is brilliant. Two, I'm still kind of out of it from my Tylenol / COVID vaccine haze. Haziness, yes.
I mean that I think that's an interesting point, and I guess I think about like what the lady who has been the librarian for 30 years, and she has her system of how. I mean, maybe this is not a good example. I'm just but like this person who knows the system, and like you said, then they leave. Okay, how do we feel their shoes, or like you said, making that. I mean, I think the donors are probably a better scenario because that whoever the contact person, the liaison between them, like how do you re-establish those relationships? I mean, have you thought about that? For those type of situations.
A little. I mean, things are constantly changing in terms of like we've seen a shift. I'm sorry, my dog is playing with a toy. I hope it's not too loud.
I'll tell you later once I get to recording.
So I think we've seen a shift with the Black Lives Matter movement kind of spearheading this shift, which is that the consumer or the community member is now suddenly very involved with what the value system is of the organization that they are putting their money into. I mean, we saw that all unfolding. If some organizations were too slow to come out and say they were in support of Black Lives Matter, they would lose a lot of their client base, or just kind of the whole cancel culture thing that came from that, stemmed from out of that, that and the Me Too movement probably. But so I think when we're talking about donors, that relates as well, because suddenly people are much more concerned with where their money is going. They're not just doing it to support the orchestra musicians or the opera singers on stage. They're now saying, wait a minute, is this organization something that aligns? Does this organization's values, do their values align with my values? And is that something I want to participate in? And this is a shift that's happening like not just with donors, but also with marketing. I don't know if you saw today that Dr. Seuss, certain books from Dr. Seuss are no longer going to be available on Amazon. And I think that's a great example of what I'm talking about, where suddenly what's being written in the books, right, is a reflection of what Amazon thinks. Mm-hmm. And so if people don't like what's being written in Dr. Seuss books, they might not want to pursue purchasing that book on Amazon. And so then Amazon is not willing to sell those books anymore. I mean, there's probably a lot more reasons, and I don't even know which books they are.
Okay.
I just saw the headline. But, yeah, it's interesting. And I think diversity is another big aspect of that, where, I'll give an example. I was buying a pair of, for lack of a better term, yoga pants, right, to do some stretching. I've been trying to take care of myself and do some stretching. And this, it just came across my Facebook news feed, and it was the most diverse marketing I've ever seen. They had every body type up there, every skin color, everything you could imagine, right? All different sorts of people. And it intrigued me, and I was reading the comments, and so many people who were purchasing this item had written, "Thank you so much for including my body type in this, in these ads. I will now purchase exclusively from you." So it's just been really interesting to kind of observe what's happening there with the marketing. And then, of course, all of that just makes me wonder, like, how can we be reaching audiences? How can we take all of this into account, all these big changes? And do we need to be taking these things into account as we're trying to recruit students and trying to reach our audiences on social media and that kind of thing? Should we be more upfront with what our values are? Should we be more transparent? And then what's the opposite side of that? Or do we risk losing certain people? And does that matter? So those are the kinds of things I've been thinking about lately.
You were kind of touching on something that I was thinking about as you were speaking about the shift because of people wanting to give more conscious donations, and you touched it. So maybe we can go a little deeper into that. Like, should organizations be more upfront with their values? We do good music. That's all you care about. But have you come down on the side on that of sharing their values?
I think that a large number of people do care about that. A large number of consumers do care about that and will continue to care about that, particularly if the organization is aligned with a political movement. But also, when we're talking about the arts, I think I was reading, I forget the source, forgive me, but I was reading an article about how I was reading an article about how many, even just items in the grocery store, consumers are researching where those items are coming from, what the organization believes in, and whether or not politically, like whether or not they're going to purchase that item based on if they're on the left or on the right politically.
Okay, right.
So even right down to just the food in our grocery stores, this is happening. So does that matter for the arts? I think probably, I think it's probably very significant. And then for Christian institutions, it's a very big question too.
Yes, yeah. Janette, do arts organizations need to go further than, for example, programming the music of underrepresented composers, programming the music of women, of black composers, of other minorities? Is that enough, or do performing arts organizations need to go further than that?
I mean, I think yes, doing those things you mentioned, those are all great things to do, and I think we'll see a lot more of that. Um, there's always that balance of needing to stay relevant and needing to serve the people who are already loyal to you, right? And there's that conflict. There's the people who just want to hear a Mahler symphony, and then there's the people who want to hear the new composers. And then how do you serve both of those, and what are your priorities? And there's all those questions that come along with it. But I think another big aspect of this whole thing is that the institutions themselves are lacking diversity and lacking voices from all people, right? So if we can get to the point where our institutions are a little more diverse, a lot more diverse, then we'll have those voices to be able to make decisions that are representative of the communities that we serve. So, yeah. So then out of that comes a commitment to those things you mentioned, right? Because otherwise we're just deciding to be culturally relevant and program things because that's what the political movement is saying. The reason we should be doing it, it needs to be true to who we are as an organization. Right. And until we can get to that point, it's going to be very difficult, I think.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, yeah, like you're saying, like if we change the tree, of course the fruit will be different. Right. I mean, and I think that maybe that is the step we have to take. Like, do you because some people may make the argument or maybe have the objection, are there enough qualified women out there? Are there enough qualified people of color? Have you, like, what has been your experience? I mean, you are a very brilliant conductor, and if nobody can tell, I'm not gonna tell them, your gender. But as a woman, and we talked about that in the last episode, the importance of representation. Like, I mean, what would you say to someone who said, I don't think there's enough, there's not, how do we find the qualified, this or that to fill this role?
Yeah, it's a tough question. It's one of those situations where, so I'll speak for myself as a female conductor, right? I don't view myself as a female conductor. I view myself as a conductor. People see me as a female conductor because there are so few of us, right? But I don't go into situations thinking that way. I've heard Marin Alsop say something similar, she says, I just want to be seen as a conductor and not as a female conductor. And so the whole conversation is tricky because I'm the one that just feels like a conductor. All of you out there see me as a female conductor.
Right.
And
yes.
So then I feel like I have to pave the way for female conductors or something like that, rather than just pursuing the art form for the sake of pursuing the art form. I don't know if that resonates with you at all, but
absolutely.
That being said, I think we've kind of lost in the arts. Well, I don't know if we ever had it in the arts where you could just be thrown into a position and be allowed to grow into it. You know, you in the arts, a lot of times, if you want to make it, you have to be at the top of your game, and you've got to be the best of the best of the best. And you know, whereas some other industries, you're thrown into a management role, and you're allowed to grow into it, and you have all these points that you try to achieve, all these goals you're trying to reach, and you reach those goals, and now maybe you can be promoted on to another thing. Whereas in our field, it's very like you've got to just kind of be selected because you have a reputation and you're the best, you know, or you win the audition that day. And there is some legitimacy to that, I think. You know, if you can go in and play your best on that one day, you're probably going to be able to do it any day of the year. There are some orchestras in Europe, however, where you have like a 3-year trial period with the orchestra before they'll take you, you know. Anyway, I'm sort of just speaking now. I've lost what I'm talking about.
No. I think, but you're kind of, I think you're still getting at it. Yeah, because you're saying it. I don't know. I'm maybe you can elaborate a little more. You're saying it may be a little easier, and is the 3-year period maybe a little easier to kind of demonstrate your bona fides with, you know, being the trumpet player, you know, because maybe every day you don't hit the I'm not even gonna try to say it. You don't hit that whatever the highest note is that you need to play.
Just go above G. You know,
like, okay, a B. I was gonna
the
say
high
B.
H. You know,
H.
that high H that you. How good is your high J today?
Right, you know. I mean, everybody can't do that. You know, you got to find that one. You know, how do you? But having that, you know, or even even feeling like you can grow into it, because maybe you don't even pursue it because you don't feel like you could.
Yeah, I've definitely struggled with that you know, with conducting. Like, oh, do I want to keep playing this game? You know, do I want to keep spending a lot of money to learn how to do this? Basically, you know, I've never really wanted to make it as a conductor. I've never wanted to be conducting, you know, the London Symphony or something. There are plenty of female conductors out there who have that goal, and I applaud them for it. I for myself, I just love to conduct, and so I love classical music, and I love to express myself doing that. So what was the question?
I don't
I'm not sure if there was a question.
That wasn't a question.
It's more like, here are thoughts. Go.
Yeah.
Yes.
We would just elaborate. No, but I think like, no, you're getting at it. You're getting at it. So you get it. Maybe we can kind of go back to reflecting on COVID. But I think this is really, you know, I think this time has really exposed, you know, inequities in so many areas, and the arts being one of them. But do you know, maybe tying back to COVID and the inequities, do you think that there is being some leveling, some rising, or falling, or whatever?
Oh, I mean, I think so. I mean, in terms of female conductors, for sure. I've seen more of my friends from various festivals and things getting those assistant jobs all over the place. And there's been, you know, the Dallas Symphony has, you know, created a program for women conductors that's very competitive. There's been another one I forget where, it was in Europe somewhere, where there was just an exclusively female conducting competition that was really intense and, with an incredible orchestra. And then the prize for that was huge, like jobs. So there's definitely been strides in terms of trying to create opportunities for women to get out there in the field. So that's promising. I think there may have been more of that happening had it not been for COVID, stateside anyway. I think right before COVID there was a big push for female conductors to have more opportunities here in the States. The friends that I have who are getting those gigs were reporting that a lot of their gigs were canceled and everything because of COVID. Mm-hmm. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next when things start to reopen. If orchestras are just completely reevaluating the situation, or in terms of, programming and all those things too. Time will tell on that one. But I would think that since so many of these organizations have been vocal about what their values are and have been trying to be transparent, that they would, their community members would make sure that they are sticking to their word on that. And I think that'll be a little bit of a shift, where the ticket buyer is now, we're aligning with your values, so you better come through on what you say, I think we'll see that shift happening, where the ticket purchaser has a voice now in terms of how the organization will be operating, which I think is not a bad shift, because I think the arts are there to serve the community, and this whole scenario is kind of forcing us to listen to the community.
Yes,
that they are serving. So
a good lesson for all organizations, musical or not, to serve the actual community, the whole community.
Right. And then with educational institutions, that's the whole question too, is who is the community? Right? Is it the students? Those are the people we serve. Or is it the community that the choir is singing to?
Yeah.
So it's in a lot of ways.
Is it both?
Is it both? Yeah. I think in a lot of ways, academic institutions have a harder time figuring out what to do there, because you're always free to program what you want because it's best for the students.
Yes.
Right, but then in terms of ticket sales and struggling institutions, institutions that are struggling financially, does the music department have a responsibility to help produce revenue? And if that's the case, who really is the clientele?
That sounds dangerous to me.
It's a loaded question, and it would.
I attended a Division I school where the football team had a responsibility to generate revenue for the institution, and that can be unhealthy culturally. And I don't know, honestly, if there are academic institutions where the School of Music, it produces more money than it drains. we musicians are expensive. We require, instruments and concert halls and rehearsal spaces and practice rooms and technology labs
faculty.
Yes, we are just the nature of musical training is more complex in many regards than other academic disciplines.
That's an interesting question. I wonder if there are universities or colleges that are successful in producing revenue that sustains their music departments.
I would be very surprised if there were. I would be very surprised if there were any school department or college of music in the United States that even comes close to breaking even.
Right.
But you know, I mean, I'm gonna say two things. I think, you know, like we're talking about a tangible, right, in monetary, you know, revenue, but like so I think a lot of the stuff are intangibles. You know, like we were saying about the community, and I mean that's probably like the biggest thing though, right? And maybe, you know, for non like solely academic institutions, like if you really sought the community, then the revenue may come. I mean, I'm speaking as a, you know, as a novice, but I don't. What do you think about that idea? Like, if you focused on the community, the revenue would come.
In principle, I love the idea, and here's where I think it could. Here's where I think it could work out that way: is if you collected the data, figured out all the ways that you're engaging with the community. If you're working for a university that is actually engaging the community, look at all those touch points and target the high schoolers, you know, and then that's where you see the revenue coming in the tuition, right? So you're the voice of the institution, and so that is translating into dollars when the people come through your doors and pay tuition and room and board. It might, you know, if we're talking about ticket sales, I think Adam is right that there's absolutely no way. We're not even anywhere close,
right?
You know, to paying for our, you know, the situation, the institutions.
Expenses. And I mean, I'm gonna be very like general here. I remember there was some you know, some kind of tension between programming music department concerts and, you know, revenue, you know, private, you know, more popular concerts, in the spaces where, you know, music department was expected or anticipated to perform, and that being kind of a controversial or a contentious situation. So yeah, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I think the teacher in me says that the student comes first, and it's an educational institution, and so that should be where our priorities are. But the kind of entrepreneur marketer in me says, no, you know, do things that are relevant business to the society.
Yeah.
So I think it has to be a really good balance. We'll see how I feel about that in 2 years. I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Janette, is there anything else on your mind before we move to final segments?
Well, I have had a burning question, and that is, why don't you rebrand your show and call it, we should have recorded that with Adam and Phil, because then you would be WSRTwPA. It should be a lot easier. I mean, WSRTwPA.
WSRTwPA. Because I cannot go first, Janette.
Why not? Why can't you go first?
Because, Phil, you do the audio editing.
Don't you want WAP in there?
WSRTwPA.
WSRTwPA. That does solve the constant, you know, the double the triple, whatever consonant problem.
No, it doesn't solve it, but we still have WSRT.
I mean, we're kind of inserting some sounds in there.
I mean, we do only
Janette,
have one vowel to work with.
Wow. Well, we'll take it under consideration, Janette.
We will.
But my objection is that I cannot put myself before the Philip Anthony Woodard.
Wow, you said my whole name.
Yes, his date of birth is blah, 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 blah. Here's his social security number, too.
Oh, man. Well, maybe we'll do that. Maybe this is, this would be a reason for me to say it should have been changed. So, yeah. See, this is why we brought you on, Janette, because you are always thinking about how do we move people, how do we better organizations?
That's right.
Yeah.
Improvement.
It's all about healthy conflict.
Yes.
Have those hard discussions.
Ooh, healthy. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Phil, make a note.
Okay.
Our next conversation with Janette will be about having healthy conflict.
Making the note.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be a great
teams
podcast.
Especially. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. All right. Well, dear audience, we will move on then to our customary final segments. Janette, will you play along with us again?
What is it?
Well, we are going to start with current events, where we reflect on something in the news that has caught our attention. So we'll let you collect your thoughts, and I will go to Phil. Phil, what's your current event for this week?
My current event, I remember sharing this last year, that the whole idea of voter integrity versus voter suppression.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think this is a real issue right now, and we need to be asking the question: are we concerned about voter integrity, or are these attempts of voter suppression? And to give a specific example, what's going on in Georgia, limiting polls, limiting people's the days that can go to the polls. I mean, I voted on the weekend. Than this past election, and I can't imagine, just the strain to try to go on a work day when the poll is like open, or when like most people, if that's the case, you're gonna be see bigger lines anyway. So yes, that's what's on.
I'm with you, Phil. Any effort to get fewer Americans to vote seems quite blatantly anti-democratic.
Yeah.
Can I just say one more thing about what you said, Phil?
Go ahead.
Some politician, Lindsey Graham this past weekend, in an interview, was just bald-faced about it. Saying that if we don't, if the Republican Party doesn't, suppress voting, essentially, that they'll never win another presidential election. And give him credit for being honest, but maybe the solution should be broadening your appeal to more people who will go vote for you.
Janette, you need to go help him. You got to go help out your boy. And they need to rethink their organization over there. I want to just one quick thing, a quick comment, the contrast between people, in Orlando this weekend, and we have people in Texas that are still dealing with a, weather event. Mm-hmm. Why are you here in Orlando at CPAC when you have people in Texas, or you could be in in Washington, D.C., advocating for the people in Texas and the help that they need. That's all I want to say about that.
Phil, you're getting easier to read.
Okay.
I think you might be betraying some of your loyalties.
Okay. I mean, yeah. Anyway, I'm done. I'm done talking.
Janette, what is on your mind this week as you ponder current events?
Well, actually, the thing I mentioned earlier about Amazon not selling certain Dr. Seuss books, I think is a really interesting discussion to have, because I have a feeling this is the beginning of a long list of things that they probably are not going to be willing to sell. And how far are they going to take that?
Yeah.
And is
Now
that
Janette,
censorship? Is that they're right because they're a business? They're being transparent about their values. Will it produce another opportunity for
someone else,
another bookseller, to pick up all those books that they're, it might, it'll be interesting to see what happens to the consumers if they say, well, we're not shopping at Amazon anymore. We're gonna shop over here at this other bookstore that's just for the books that you've rejected.
Yeah.
It's that whole conversation that it's happening in multiple mediums, and now books too.
Yeah. Janette, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was under the impression that the publisher of the Dr. Seuss books had decided to discontinue, I think, 3 of the books that had racially insensitive stereotypes altogether. So was it maybe I might have been mistaken. I thought it was the publisher. It was an Amazon decision not to sell them?
I might have gotten that wrong.
I'm gonna look this up because I don't think.
No, I think I'm unnecessarily blaming Amazon.
Well, Amazon makes its fair share of mistakes.
Yes, they do.
Well, they are a huge seller of books, but I think you're right.
I think it is by the publisher. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's by the
Okay, well,
publisher.
that's a very different discussion then.
but it is still newsworthy and a discussion worth having. And I think context is everything. And I have a friend who shared on social media in the wake of this news. He is Asian American. And in one of the Dr. Seuss books that's being discontinued, it parodies, people who eat with sticks instead of with silverware. And he shared the story about how when he was in elementary school and that was read aloud in class, that the entire class laughed at, how ridiculous it was for people to eat with sticks. And, I'm so glad he did that. I would not have thought of that. I'm not familiar with that particular Dr. Seuss book, but I just simply wouldn't have considered that because eating with sticks is not part of my culture. Right. It's something I only do when I order food of another culture, food from a different culture. So, big conversations to be had about so-called cancel culture, but we'll save that for another time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just 2 words. Well, quick. I feel like we talked about it, but if you don't want to answer the question, you don't have to. But how do you all maybe this is too long. We're at the end of I just feel like maybe we should talk about cancel culture a little bit. Like how do how do you all feel about cancel culture, or the
Phil,
word? We don't have time.
I've got to veto that question
Okay.
because we will be here all night. I think that's a great conversation to have as an episode of WSRTwPA or WSRTwPA.
WSRTwPA. Yeah, WSRTwPA.
And I think Janette would actually be great to have on for that because she is like a thinker and like not beholden to any particular political ideology, but more but to common sense. Anyway, all right. I'm going to tell you my current event, and that is the Biden administration moving up the timeline for when we will have enough vaccine doses for the entire American population. Originally, it was going to be at the end of July, and just today, on March 2nd, President Biden announced that he anticipates it will be by the end of May.
Wow.
And that part of the reason it will be that not only has the federal government secured more of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine than the previous administration secured, but also it has secured or it has compelled / coerced, somehow convinced Johnson & Johnson to share the formula for its coronavirus vaccine with Merck and convinced Merck to begin producing the vaccine that was formulated by a competitor. And so that little piece of news about the nature of that collaboration to overcome this pandemic actually filled me with quite a bit of patriotism that these giant American pharmaceutical companies would work together at the behest of the federal government that is doing its darndest to get its act together to end the pandemic 3 months earlier than it would have been, or 2 months earlier than it would have otherwise. I'm very encouraged by that, and I hope that it comes to pass.
Yeah.
And life can go back to normal, please.
Yes.
Yeah.
I had a dream the other night about going to Wegmans without wearing a face mask. But in my dream, I kept noticing people's smiles. I think we're going to smile a whole lot more than we ever did for the first few months when the masks are gone.
Yeah. No, it's pretty like when the students have their mask off, noticing the missing teeth, which is like something you don't see right now.
Yes.
Anyway,
it'll be interesting to see if we're more expressive with our eyes.
Yeah.
Because,
what have we learned from
with
the
a mask
pandemic?
on, I find myself going,
Yep. Absolutely. Overcompensating.
Now I think it'll be like, just a little too much.
Well, a lot of us have forgotten how to interact with people, period. So
it's just gonna be awkward in general.
Yes, as a society, we'll be relearning social graces.
Yes.
Oh.
So maybe we should go into our last segment here. Adam, would you like to start? What did you learn?
Oh, what did I learn? I enjoyed absorbing Janette's wisdom. That's usually how I feel when I'm sitting across from a cup of coffee with Janette. So thank you, Janette, for sharing with us. Phil, how about you?
I think the idea of the value conscious donor. I thought that was a great idea. You know, hopefully, maybe that leads to more value transparent organizations. So thank you.
I
Thank you for sharing
learned that it's important to read the full article before you report a current event.
That's okay.
Although I was only given about 10 seconds notice, so you know.
Yes, that
It
is.
is my bad. My bad.
No, it's not your bad. You're fine. You're good.
I'm sure
I mean,
Amazon is.
Being human does not detract from your brilliance one bit, Janette.
Yes.
Okay. Whew.
The pressure is off. The pressure is off.
All right. Phil, is there anything else for the good of the order?
No, that's it. Thank you. Thank you,
All right.
Janette.
Well,
for coming
thank
back.
you to Janette LaBarre. Janette, I am confident after all that we've had to talk about today that we will need you back for a third WSRTwPA / WSRTwAP. Yes, episode at some point in the future. But with our gratitude and thanks out of the way, dear audience, we will say bye for now.
Adios.